The first rays of dawn stretch pale fingers over St. Ilaria Cemetery. Dew clings to the grass like scattered beads of glass. I step through the wrought iron gate, boots crunching on the gravel path. My breath puffs in the cold air. The church bell tolls once, soft and solitary, though it's not yet 6 o'clock. My routine is set. I sweep the walkways, I trim wayward rose bushes, I polish the brass nameplates until they gleam. Today should be no different. Yet as I round the bend by the ancient oak, I freeze. Before me lies a freshly dug grave. The soil is piled neatly to one side. A varnished casket sits at its edge, a simple bouquet of white lilies rests atop its lid, and behind the plea of the flowers stands a single pew, empty save for one cloaked figure. I frown. No funeral is scheduled. The sexton's ledger shows no service before sunrise. No mourners signed in. I peer closer. The figure kneels, shoulders bowed under a threadbare hooded cloak. Steam drifts from beneath the hood, but there is no face to greet mine, only shadow. My heart thuds. I hesitate a step away. Then I call, voice low, "Excuse me." There is no response. The figure's head remains bowed. The lilies sway in a faint breeze. I advance another foot. Gravel shifts beneath my boot. The figure rises, slow and deliberate, and turns. The movement snaps the air tight with silence. For a heartbeat, I expect a face, a skull perhaps, or empty sockets, but I see nothing. The hood's shadow deepens, concealing every feature. I swallow hard. "Who are you?" I repeat, louder. No answer. The cloaked form tilts forward as if nodding in acknowledgement. Then it steps away from the pew, across the grass, and toward the headstone at the back of the plot. I move to intercept. My footfalls crack the stillness like gunshots. When I am within arm's reach, the figure halts. I lift a hand, ready to grab the cloak, and the world shifts. The air blurs, the casket vanishes, the lilies dissolve into morning mist. The pew recedes into damp earth. The grave gapes empty before me, unmarked and undisturbed. The only remnants of the ceremony are the indent in the ground and a single white lily petal crushed beneath my boot. My pulse races. I lower, trembling fingers. The oak's ancient branches creak overhead. In the distance, the church bell tolls again, though the hour remains unchanged. I kneel to inspect the spot. No coffin, no bouquet, no prayer book left open, nothing but cool, dark earth and the faintest trace of something metallic, like a brass clasp pressed into the soil. I search the grass around me. No foot-shaped impressions, no cloak fibers, only my own footprints leading here and back to the entrance gate. A question presses on my mind. Was it a dream? But my heart pounds too fast. My hands are too clammy. This was real. I stand and dust off my pants. I glance at my watch. 5:53 a.m. Time ticks onward. I have chores to finish, but my eyes keep returning to that plot. I reach into my coat pocket and pull out a silver trowel. I heft it in my hand. My breath catches. Should I dig? Should I uncover what or who lies beneath? I hesitate. Then, with a deep breath, I kneel again and nestle the trowel's blade into the turf. The blade parts the roots with a dull whisper. Each shovelful of soil feels heavier than the last, as though the earth itself resists. I pause when the blade strikes something hard. I clear away the final shovelful of dirt. A flat, unmarked stone emerges. It is small, barely larger than my palm, and smooth as glass. No inscription, no dates, nothing. I wipe the stone clean on my sleeve and place it on the grass beside me. My mind races. Besides me, the rest of the cemetery lies still, the morning mist weaving through the stones like restless spirits. I push to my feet, stone in hand. I dust off the handle of the trowel and tuck it back into my pocket. I replace the sod as best I can. Then I walk away, eyes scanning every silhouette of crypt and mausoleum, half expecting the hooded figure to step from behind a statue, but none come. Back at the chapel annex, I sit at the small wooden desk, hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee. I study the caretaker's ledger. No services, no entries. Just my neat, familiar handwriting marking routine maintenance. I place the smooth stone down beside the ledger and trace its featureless surface with a fingertip. What have I uncovered? What have I interrupted? Beyond the tall windows, the sun climbs higher. The church bell tolls a third time, and in my chest, dread settles in, heavy and sure. Tomorrow at dawn, I will return, and there will be another funeral waiting. And the hooded figure will be there again, silent and unseen. I close my eyes, bracing for what that knowledge brings, because I already know some ceremonies are not meant to end, and neither, it seems, is this one. The next morning, before the sun rises, I arrive at St. Ilaria Cemetery again. Mist clings to the stones like restless spirits. My boots sink slightly into the soft, dew-wet grass. I carry only a flashlight and the small, unmarked stone I found yesterday. At 5:48 a.m., I round the bend by the oak. My heart lurches. The grave is open once more. Fresh soil lines its edges. A lone pew stands at its head, empty. No casket this time. Only the blue, worn cloak draped over the bench, yet as if waiting for its owner. I step forward, careful not to startle the silence. The grass parts beneath my boot, revealing a single white lily, pristine and dew-soaked, laid atop the sod. My pulse hammers. I hold the flashlight over the grave's dark mouth. The beam catches the edges of wooden boards. Yes, a coffin lies beneath. Call it compulsion or foolish courage, but I don't wait for the hooded figure. I kneel and hook my fingertips under the nearest board. With a soft creak, it lifts. I shine the light inside. Darkness, then movement, a pale hand, impossibly still as if frozen mid-gesticulation. I swallow, my mouth goes dry, I inch closer. Before I can peer deeper, a soft rustle draws my attention. I whirl toward the pew and nearly stumble over the cloak. The hooded garment slumps on the bench, empty. My flashlight flickers, and for one wild second, I imagine a silhouette moving behind the row of headstones. I force myself to focus. Back to the coffin. I shine the beam into its hollow interior, but I see nothing but tangled fabric and wood. No body, no remains, just empty darkness. My breath catches. I rise, legs unsteady, and clutch the stone in my hand. Its smooth surface feels impossibly cold. I press it to my palm, willing myself to think clearly. Questions flood my mind. Who holds these daily funerals, and why? Whose body lies beneath the sod, only to vanish at dawn? Why was the cloak left behind today if not to lure me closer? The wind stirs the lilies at my feet. My flashlight wavers. I step away from the grave and back toward the gate, but I pause. On the stone path, tiny footprints, no larger than a child's, lead away from the ceremony and vanish into the mist. I crouch to inspect them. They circle the grave in a perfect ring before drifting south toward the old mausoleum, and then disappear entirely, as though swallowed by the earth. My pulse pounds. I rise and scan the row of crypts. Their iron doors are locked, their windows dark. Yet something tugs at me to follow the footprints to discover where they lead. I glance once more at the open grave. The coffin is gone. Only the hastily refilled earth remains, and that perfect white lily. I scoop up the flower, tucking it into my coat. The mist thickens, and a distant church bell tolls, once, twice, 3 times, though no hour has changed. I leave the cemetery gates with the hooded cloak folded beneath one arm and the stone and lily in the other. Each step crunches on gravel, echoing into the morning hush. My mind races with answers I cannot find. Back at the caretaker's hut, I set the cloak on a chair and spread the stone and lily across the table. I cup my hands around a fresh cup of coffee, steam swirling above. I stare at the odd collection, a child's cloak that fits no child, a stone that bears no name, a lily that never wilts. Slowly, I open my notebook and label a new entry, the unfinished funeral. Beneath, I jot 3 columns of questions. Identity, who is being buried? Ritual, who performs the ceremony each dawn? Purpose, what do they hope to achieve? I close my eyes and press my forehead to the table. The coffee's warmth seeps into my palms, but my heart remains chilled. I know 2 things for certain. Tomorrow, I will return, and I will follow those footprints, because some mysteries demand to be unraveled at any cost, even when the answers lie buried in darkness. The following dawn, I arrive before dawn's pale edge scratches the sky. A thin mist still lingers among the stones. My flashlight cuts a swath of light through the gloom as I hurry toward the oak tree. At 5:49 a.m., I round the bend. The grave gapes open once more. Fresh soil lines its borders, flanked by 2 slate markers I've never seen before. The air tastes of damp earth and something older, decay under new life. A polished coffin rests on timbers above the pit. Its mahogany surface gleams in the torchlight. A second bouquet lies at the foot. More lilies, identical to the first, white, perfect, and utterly unwithered. Beside them, a small wreath of ivy leaves woven into a circle. Heart pounding, I approach. No hooded figure this time, only the silent ceremony, waiting. I step onto the grass, careful to avoid footprints from earlier. The ivy wreath clings to the coffin like a crown. I crouch to examine it. Tiny veins trace each leaf. The stems feel alive beneath my fingertips, though they should be brittle. A soft scrape halts me. Behind the wrought iron fence at the edge of the mist stands the figure, cloaked, skeletal, silent. It lifts one hand, gloved or not I cannot tell, and inclines its head. I swallow and rise. My flashlight sweeps toward the coffin lid. No name is carved, no clasp or handle in sight, only smooth wood and the wreath. I glance back at the figure. It stands still, an unblinking sentinel. I step closer, boots crunching. The coffin shifts, just a fraction on its supports, as if nudged by a breeze that does not touch the surrounding air. The ivy rattles softly. A whisper drifts across the grave. A single word like broken glass, remember. The word snaps me back. I pivot to peer at the figure, but it has receded into the haze. Its outline blurs as though unwilling to be observed. My flashlight trembles in my hand. I turn back to the coffin. The wreath's ivy tendrils curl over the edge of the lid. One tendril extends downward, brushing the packed earth. I lean in, compelled, and lift the wreath. The ivy resists, then yields with a quiet sigh. Underneath, scrawled into the wood with what looks like fingernail gouges, are letters. EVOSS. My breath hitches. The wood around the letters drips sap like dark blood. Each letter glows faintly, phosphorescent under the flashlight's beam. I step back, hand clamped over my mouth. Evos, I whisper. The name twists my insides like cold steel. Who is Evos? Why is this unknown person honored anew each dawn? A wind stirs the mist. The ivy wreath tumbles from my grasp and lands softly atop the grave. The wreath's circle closes neatly around the spelling EVOSS. Far off, a church bell peals 3 times. The unnatural echo shudders through the stones. I hurry forward and peer into the coffin's keyhole. No key to turn, only darkness beyond. My reflection stares back. Pale, hollow-eyed, enthralled by the mystery. The figure's voice reaches me then, a breath behind my ear. Remember. I whirl, but there is nothing but swirling mist. My flashlight flickers. The coffin is gone. The wreath, the lilies, the ivy, vanished. The grave is empty soil once more, save for 2 slate markers sunk into the earth. EVOSS. Born 1889. Died. The question marks stare up at me. My heart races. I trace the letters with a shaking finger. The earth around the markers is neat, untrampled, as though tended by invisible hands. I shiver. The morning is coming fast. I rise and step away. No figures, no ceremony, only the open grave and the markers. I pause at the oak tree's base, breathing hard. I watch the shadows stretch as dawn breaks. The cemetery stirs. A robin begins its song, the dew glints on headstones, and somewhere the sexton's dog barks behind locked gates. Clutching the slate markers by their edges, I retreat to the caretaker's hut. My boots leave prints in the soft grass. I carry them like evidence, 2 small, unweathered stones etched with a name that should not exist. Inside, I lay them on the desk beside my ledger. I flip through my notes, now bulging with observations. Daily funeral for EVOSS. No records in town archives. Coffin appears, then vanishes. Mysterious wreath of ivy. I press my palm against the cool desk, leaning over the open ledger. The familiar lines of my handwriting curve neatly across the page, but today they feel like another world. I write a new heading in bold letters, Elias Voss, the unfinished death. Beneath, I list connection. Why this name? Markers. Why slate, not brass? Ceremony. Who arranges it unseen? A creak at the door makes me jerk upright. I whirl, flashlight in hand, but no one stands there. The caretaker's hut is empty, save for my tools and my scattered papers. My breath comes in short gasps. I force myself to exhale. Circling back to the desk, I read over my questions. Tomorrow, I decide, I will watch all night. I will stake out the oak, the grave, the mist. I will see who comes and who leaves. Because at St. Hilaria Cemetery, some deaths are only beginnings, and some memories demand a witness. I spent the afternoon poring over the cemetery ledger, but the entry for Elias Voss is nowhere to be found. My fingers trace each row of neat script, names carried through generations, farmers, merchants, ministers. Each line records a life laid to rest. Yet when I pause at the blank space where Voss should appear, the page seems to ripple beneath my touch. At dusk, I lock up the chapel annex and drive into town. The archive sits behind the old courthouse, behind a barred door hung with a faded seal. Inside, the air smells of mothballs and musty paper. A single lamp casts a pool of yellow light over rows of filing cabinets. I approach the clerk's desk. A sleepy man barely lifts his eyes. I need death records, I say. Elias Voss, born 1889. He rolls a cigarette, sparks a match. Voss? He exhales smoke. Never heard of him. I slide a printed list of dates and variations across the desk. Spell it VOSS. No obituary, no headstone. Nothing. He frowns, reaches for a bound volume of death certificates. The leather spine creaks as he opens it. We search under V, still nothing. Under E, nothing. Under Voss, nothing. He shrugs. Maybe the records burned in the fire at the records house, 1927. I blink. There was a fire? Flash fire. East wing, level 4. Took weeks to rebuild. They say 100 years of deeds, wills, ashes. He taps ash into an empty tray. Maybe his certificate was lost. I thank him, heart pounding. A missing record feels different than no record at all. It feels deliberate. I leave the archive, stepping into a chill wind. Street lamps glow in puddles. In the distance, the church bell tolls. Once, twice, 3 times. My pulse echoes its rhythm. At home, I spread maps and microfilm sheets across the desk. By lantern light, I trace cemeteries in neighboring towns, parish registers, old newspapers on brittle reels. I watch the flickering images. Birth announcements, marriage notices, death acknowledgments for every neighbor, every family, except Voss. Past midnight, I sit bleary-eyed in the dark. A scrap of vellum flutters at my feet. I pick it up. An invoice from 1910, listing payment for cemetery upkeep for Lot 42. My heart leaps. I cross-reference Lot 42. It's the plot where the daily funerals take place. I press my palm to the paper. That's the plot, I whisper. But the invoice doesn't bear a name, only a handwritten code, EV. A sudden tap on the window makes me jump. I freeze. Outside, the glass is streaked with mist. No footprints in the dirt below, no shape passing by, just the soft, rhythmic drip of condensation. I swallow and return to the documents. My eyes land on an old newspaper clipping pinned beneath the microfilm reader. Soldier MIA returns to hometown, body never recovered. It's dated August 1910 and names one E. Voss, Private Elias Voss, 7th Infantry. Reported missing in action overseas. I lean back, mind racing. A man lost to war, presumed dead, but no body ever came home. No grave marker, no procession, no mourners. And here at St. Hilaria, every dawn, someone forged a funeral in his honor. My lantern gutter flickers. I rub my temples against a headache. I set out copies of the clipping, the invoice, the blank certificates in a neat row. I realize the one record that must exist, his death certificate, has been expunged or hidden. A cold breeze rattles the window pane. I glance up. The night stretches outside, silent and unyielding. Tomorrow I will confront the sexton. I will demand to see the original ledger. I will dig deeper into the town's shadows. For Elias Voss deserves more than a phantom service. He deserves to be remembered and to rest. Because some names refuse to be forgotten, and some graves demand a proper witness. Mist clings to the ground like a living thing when I slip through the cemetery gates at midnight. My flashlight is low on batteries, so I carry only its bare beam, enough to cut through the inky darkness. In one pocket rests the ivy wreath. In the other, the slate markers etched EVOSS. My breath puffs in short clouds. I follow the faint footprints I found days before, circling the oak tree and drifting southward. They thread between headstones mottled with moss, then vanish at the edge of the old family mausoleum. I pause, heart pounding. A soft scraping drifts from within the mausoleum's arch. The iron door, long rusted shut, stands ajar. I approach, every nerve strung tight. The beam of my flashlight catches a narrow gap in the door. Beyond lies total darkness. I slip inside. The air is colder here, damp with centuries of earth. My boot heels clack on flagstones slick with mold. I sweep the light across the walls. Wrought iron racks where urns once rested, a mosaic tiling of cracked skulls and roses. At the far end, I make out the hooded figure, kneeling before a low altar, an altar I've never seen. Its cloak drapes over a stone plinth. On the plinth rests a small, battered prayer book bound in black leather. Candle stubs, burned down to charred nubs, stand in crooked holders. The figure's head is bowed. I hold my breath. A voice, distant and hollow, whispers through the mausoleum. 2 words, repeated in a slow chant. Remember, remember. I advance, boots muffled by the moss carpet. Every step echoes. The hooded figure shifts but does not rise. Its hands rest palm down on the open prayer book. I cannot see its face, only the curve of its hood. I swallow and clear my throat. Who are you? The words crack in the gloom. No answer, only the whisper of wind through broken windows. The figure lifts one hand and traces a finger across the book's yellowed pages. I shine the beam. The pages are blank. I step closer. The moss beneath my feet stirs as though alive. Soft rustling surrounds me. I spin, flashlight slicing the darkness. I see movement, shadows sliding between the columns of crypts outside the mausoleum wall. A suzerain of voices drifts on the air. Honor the lost. Ceremony incomplete. Unfinished death. My breath hitches. The voices are no more than echoes, yet they carry weight, ancient and sorrowful. I focus back on the hooded figure. The candle flames flare for a heartbeat, revealing the prayer book's pages now filled with scrawled lines of spidery text. Words writhe across the page in a language I do not know, yet somehow understand. By name and memory shall the broken return. By witness and homage shall his spirit find rest. The candles gutter out. Darkness swallows the mausoleum. I stumble backward, heart hammering. My flashlight flickers and dies. Blackness. I stand paralyzed in complete night. The air constricts, heavy with unseen breath. Then from all around, the chanting resumes, louder, insistently. Remember, remember, remember. I fumble in my pocket and retrieve a fresh battery. My hands shake as I swap it in. The beam snaps alive, pinpoint bright. I train it on the plinth. The hooded figure is gone. The altar is empty. The prayer book lies open on the floor. Pages blank once more. The candle holders stand upright, their stubs melted into pools of hardened wax. I hurry outside, gasping for air. The mausoleum door groans closed behind me. The mist has thickened, swirling in ghostly eddies around the crypts. The air vibrates with distant church bells, tolling 9 times, though no clock has changed. I check my watch, 12:15 a.m. Far too late for any funeral. Far too soon for any dawn ceremony. My pulse races as I trace my steps back toward the oak tree. There, at the base of the tree, I find a single sheet of parchment pinned into the bark with a bone-white thorn. My flashlight catches its edges, the same spidery script from the prayer book. I pick it up and read the line that glows faintly in the beam. Remember him daily, or he will remember you. My blood turns cold. I fold the parchment, tucking it into my coat. I turn and hurry back to the caretaker's hut, the mist swallowing my footprints behind me. Inside, I lay the parchment on the desk beside the ivy wreath and the slate markers. My hands tremble as I trace the words. Who wrote this warning? Who pins these threats? And what will happen if I fail to remember Elias Voss tomorrow at dawn? I pour a cup of coffee, steam swirling above. I stare into its dark surface, mind racing. The voices still echo in my ears. The words, remember, or he will remember you, weigh heavy behind my eyes. I close the window shutters, plunge the room into shadow, and sit at the desk with pen in hand. Outside, the mist presses against the glass. Tomorrow at dawn, I will return to the grave. I will honor the ceremony. I will remember. Because some debts cannot be ignored, and some memories demand a price. I slip from my bed just past midnight, unable to sleep. The warning on the parchment coils in my mind like smoke. Grabbing my coat and flashlight, I slip out the back door of the caretaker's hut and cross the dew-slick grass toward the oak tree. The cemetery lies in a still hush. Lantern light from the chapel annex casts long shadows, but beyond that, all is black. No mist, no moonlight, only heavy silence. My boots press into the soft ground as I hurry toward the familiar clearing. At the oak's base, something hangs from a low branch. A priest's stole, its white fabric streaked with dirt. I pause, heart thundering. The stole, embroidered with a silver cross, sways in the slight breeze. No priest is scheduled here, and no service should be held at this hour. I advance and reach up to touch the stole. The fabric is damp, cold to the touch, as though it's been soaked in foul water. I pull it free and wrap it around my forearm. Beneath the branch, half buried in earth, lie torn pages from a hymn book, the words smeared and indecipherable. A whisper drifts across the clearing, soft, pleading. I sweep my flashlight beam in a slow arc. The oak's roots recede into darkness. Only one headstone remains, the small, unmarked stone I uncovered on the very first morning, the one I set aside, fearing its secret. My light settles on its face. The surface is scratched with new markings, runes or symbols carved deep into the rock. I crouch to inspect them. Each stroke gouges the stone, angular lines that twist into spirals, forming shapes I don't recognize but somehow feel in my bones. I cross-refer to my notes. None of the symbols match ivy motifs or slate lettering. They resemble letters, but from a language I can't place. My breath hitches as I trace one symbol with a trembling fingertip. It pulses with a cold energy, like the stone itself is alive. A crackling sound makes me whirl. Beyond the edge of the clearing, the hooded figure stands just inside the mist, its face hidden. It raises one gloved hand and points at the carvings. Then it turns and dissolves into the fog. I swallow hard, heart pounding. The stained stole in my hand feels heavy, burdened. I step back from the headstone, brushing dirt from the sleeve. I shine my light down the row of stones. All are untouched, no other marks, no footprints. The night is too quiet, too still. I slip the stole into my coat pocket, kneel, and snap a photo of the carved stone with my phone. Even though I know the image will vanish by morning, like everything else here. I stand and brush the earth back over the hymnal pages. I vow to return with tools, to dig up the stone and study it, to decode the symbols before dawn's first light. As I retrace my steps to the hut, the distant church bell tolls, one ring, low and hollow. It vibrates through my chest. I pause under the oak, glance back at the empty clearing and whisper, "What are you asking of me?" No answer comes. Only the wind, sighing through the branches, and the gravelly echo of the bell fading into the night. Dawn's first light filters through the oaks as I return to the cemetery, weary yet resolute. My coat pockets hold the stained stole and the hymn fragments, but most precious of all is my camera, if any image survived until morning. I pause at the wrought iron gate. The mist is gone and the air tastes of damp leaves. I hurry down the winding path toward the familiar clearing, heart thundering with anticipation. At the grave Elias Voss's plot, the ground is smooth and undisturbed, as if no one has touched it in years. The slate markers lie propped neatly at the head, their engraved letters clean and sharp despite the night's vandalism. The ivy wreath, too, rests atop the markers, wilted now but still recognizable. I set the stole and hymn pages on the grass and kneel before the markers. I run my fingertip across the EVOSS carving, feeling the grooves beneath my nail. Then I stand, camera raised, and snap 3 quick photos from different angles. No sooner do I lower the camera than a soft rustle draws my gaze to the plot beside his, a parcel of earth I had never cleared. It is overgrown with weeds and wild grass, its headstone half buried under lichen and ivy. Curiosity tugs me forward. I crouch at the edge of the neighboring plot and brush away the tangled ivy. The headstone's surface flakes away like pale crust, revealing letters that glint in the morning light. M. Voss. Born 1891, died 1910. My breath catches. M. Voss. A brother? A sister? I wipe the stone's surface with my sleeve. The dash before the death year lies thick with moss, as though time itself has tried to erase it. Beside me, the soil of this adjacent grave is higher than the earth around it, as if someone recently heaped the ground in sorrow. I glance back at Elias's plot. The earth there is too neat, too ordered, despite the daily rituals. Heart pounding, I drop to one knee and press a hand to the unmarked turf. It is warm and supple under my palm, not like the rest of the cemetery soil, which still holds last night's dew. I trace the edge of the plot, mapping its boundaries with my fingers. A sudden breeze stirs the ivy above M. Voss's stone, uncovering a small brass plate embedded in the ground at the foot of the grave. I lean forward and clear away the dirt. The plate is tarnished but legible. Margaret Voss, beloved sister. Beloved sister, Elias's sister, Margaret. Born 1891, died 1910, the very year he disappeared in battle. I press my palm to my mouth to hush the gasp that rises. I rise and retrieve my trowel, mind racing. Memories of the nightly carvings, of whispered warnings surge through me. Yet I cannot ignore this revelation. The ritual is not only for Elias. Someone cares for Margaret as well. I kneel once more and begin to dig at the corner of her grave, careful not to damage the headstone. Each shovelful of earth feels heavy with expectation. After only a few moments, the blade strikes something solid. I clear the remaining soil away, revealing a narrow, carved wooden box with iron hinges sunk deep beneath the turf. My hands tremble as I lift the lid. Inside lies a folded scrap of parchment, sealed with black wax. Next to it, a small brooch in the shape of a lily, its petals crafted in tarnished silver. I lift the brooch first. The silver is cold in my hand, and the petals bear faint etchings, tiny runes similar to those carved on the unmarked stone. I tuck the buckle into my pocket and retrieve the parchment. Breaking the wax seal, I unfold the brittle parchment, careful not to tear it. Scrawled in elegant script is a single aching line. Together until memory fades, yet today we stand united. The words burn in my mind. Together until memory fades. United in death's forgetting. I glance at the two graves side by side, Elias's and Margaret's, and feel a sudden aching sorrow for these siblings lost to time. A distant church bell peals 5 times, each toll resonating through the silent grounds. I glance at my watch, 6:03 a.m. Soon, the morning funeral will begin, and someone will lay fresh lilies at Elias's grave once more. I rise and carefully replace the wooden box in its resting place, smoothing the turf over it. Then, with the brooch and the parchment folded safely in my coat, I step back and survey both graves. 2 siblings, one missing for a century, the other a forgotten child. And each dawn, an unseen mourner binds them together in ritual. My heart is heavy with questions, but one thing is clear. I will not let their memory fade. Tomorrow, I will return, not simply to watch a funeral, but to bear witness for both of them. For some ceremonies are twofold, and some deaths demand not one, but many witnesses. That night, sleep eluded me. Fatigue pressed at my lids like lead, yet every time I drifted off, I awoke to the echo of distant bells. Eventually, worn down by fear and curiosity, I surrendered to rest, and the dream came. I stood once more in the clearing at St. Ilaria, under an ink-black sky. The oak's branches arched overhead like skeletal arms. The 2 graves lay side by side, their markers gleaming in ghostly moonlight. White lilies carpeted the ground, more than I'd ever seen at dawn. Hundreds of blossoms, their petals whisper soft. The hooded figure knelt between the graves, back turned. Its cloak was torn and ragged, as though stitched from shadows. I approached, careful to step only on grass. "Who are you?" I called, but the figure did not turn. Instead, it reached into a pocket and withdrew a single lily, placing it at the head of Margaret's grave. Then another, at Elias's. Then another, until both graves were lined in perfect pairs. As I watched, the lilies pulsed with a faint light, and the ground trembled. From beneath the soil at Elias's grave, a hand burst forth, pale and skeletal, fingers grasping for air. The hand of Margaret's grave followed, then several more. Rotting wrists, tattered sleeves, empty eye sockets peering through skulls. My breath caught. Spectral figures, mourners fair and foul, emerged, circling the graves in a slow, mournful dance. Their faces were blank or veiled, but their sobs echoed through the night, a chorus of grief and longing. I raised my voice, desperate. "Stop this! Go back!" But the figures did not hear. They swayed like reeds in a windless night. The hooded figure finally turned. Beneath the hood lay no face, only a swirling void of darkness. It extended one hand toward me, beckoning. I stepped back, heart hammering. The ground beneath me cracked, and a lily sprouted at my feet, growing rapidly into bloom before my eyes, its petals unfurled, white as bone. Terrified, I kicked at the flower. It shuddered, wilted, and died, petals falling like ash. The tremor in the earth ceased. The hooded figure's voice rose, an echo drifting on the wind. "Remember us or join us." The words froze me. The spectral mourners paused their dance and turned toward me, their empty eyes imploring. I felt their sorrow, their rage, their longing for remembrance. I screamed, and the dream shattered. I woke with a start, sheets tangled around me, heart pounding. Dawn threatened the horizon, pale light seeping through the window. My forehead glowed with sweat. My hands gripped the edge of the bed as though it might vanish. The warning lingered in my mind. "Remember us, or join us." I rose and donned my coat, eyes bleary. In the coat pocket, the silver lily brooch felt hot against my side, as though alive. I retrieved my flashlight and the pouch containing the parchment. My mind reeled with the dream's final words. I knew what I had to do. Tonight's vigil would be different. I would face the hooded one. I would speak the names aloud, not just in my mind. I would force the ceremony's hidden mourner to show themselves. As I stepped outside into the crisp morning air, the church bell tolled thrice, 5:47 a.m. on the dot. A chill slid down my spine. Tomorrow night, I vowed, I would descend into the darkness of the mausoleum again. I would confront the hooded one and end this cycle, or be claimed by it. Because some dreams warn of death not yet asked, and some nightmares become all too real. That night, I slip into the old chapel at the far edge of town. Its heavy wooden doors creak as I push them open. Inside, moonlight filters through stained glass windows, painting the pews in fractured color. The air is cool and still, like a breath held too long. I set my flashlight on the altar's lip and lower my voice to a whisper. "I come to remember," I say. My words echo softly against stone walls. The chapel is empty except for worn hymnals and dust motes drifting in slanted light. I kneel at the front pew, clutching the silver lily brooch and the folded parchment. My pulse thumps in my ears. Midnight strikes with the toll of a distant bell. Its sound vibrates through the rafters. I rise and step toward the altar, scanning the shadows. If you seek remembrance, I call. I speak your names. Silence answers. The church is deserted, or so I think. A soft rustle comes from behind the pulpit. I circle it, heart pounding. Beneath the altar cloth, I glimpse a white sleeve the priest stole from the oak tree. My flashlight falls on an open Bible. Its pages turn to the Book of Lamentations. I clear my throat. Elias Voss, Margaret Voss. My voice wavers. I remember you. The hush thickens. Then, from the choir loft above, a low chanting begins. Off-key, ragged. I lift my light. Dozens of empty pews crest the platform, but no choir stands there. The voice seems to come from the rafters themselves. By name and memory, by witness and homage. I recognize the words from the prayer book, from the mausoleum. The chant grows louder, more insistent. The air chills. Breath fogs in front of me. The stole quivers on the pulpit. I step closer, hand extended. The fabric lifts as if breathed upon. Under the fabric, scratched into the wood, are runes, the same ones on the unmarked stone. A figure steps from the shadows behind the altar, hooded, silent. The chant stops. The chapel falls into a hush so deep it presses against my ears. I swallow. Show yourself, I demand. The figure tilts its head. A faint beam of moonlight catches a single feature beneath the hood, a pale hand holding a candle stub, its wick still smoldering. It extends the candle toward me. The flame flickers, illuminating the figure's other hand, palm up, etched with more runes glowing faintly. I step forward. Why this ceremony? Who are you? The hooded figure does not speak. Instead, it touches the open Bible, and the pages flip on their own, stopping at a blank, unnumbered page. Words writhe onto the paper. Until all are remembered, the debt remains unpaid. A gust of cold wind sweeps through the chapel, extinguishing the candle flame. Darkness fills the space. I fumble for my flashlight and flick it on. When light returns, the figure is gone. The stole has dropped to the floor. The hymnal pages lie blank once more. Only the open Bible remains on the altar, its spine creaking. I kneel and press my forehead to the cold stone floor. My heart hammers. Outside, the distant church bell tolls 6 times. I rise and retrieve the stole, the hymnal fragments, and the silver brooch. I tuck them into my coat with trembling fingers. I pause at the chapel door, glancing back at the empty pews. A single lily lies on the altar step, fresh, dewy, untouched by time. I pick it up gently. Tomorrow, I'll stand again at Dawn's funeral. But tonight has shown me the truth. This is not just a cemetery ritual. It is a covenant between the living and the dead. Some debts demand more than memory. They demand tribute. And every night, beneath shadow and stone, the covenant waits to be honored or broken. The first pale glow of dawn finds me again at St. Ilaria Cemetery, clutching the silver brooch and the single white lily I retrieved from the chapel. My breath puffs in small clouds as I step past the oak and toward the familiar clearing. At 5:46 a.m., 2 minutes before the funeral, I pause at Elias's grave. The slate markers lie undisturbed, the ivy wreath draped across them in wilted splendor. Margaret's plot stands next to his, its headstone moss-clad but intact. I set the lily gently on Elias's marker, feeling the weight of my vow to remember them both. I settle a few feet back, crouching behind a low mausoleum wall. From this vantage, I can see the entire clearing, and whatever arrives here before sunrise. My fingers tighten around the brooch. If the hooded figure appears again, I'll confront it. I will not be denied the truth. Time crawls. My eyes sting from starlight fading into morning. At exactly 5:47 a.m., the church bell tolls. Once, hollow and low, then twice, then thrice. My pulse hammers in time with the echoes. And then I see it. A shape drifting through the mist, moving toward the plot, hooded cloak brushing the dewy grass. It glides soundlessly as though borne on air. My breath catches. I stand, stepping into view. "Show yourself," I call, voice firm despite the tremor inside me. The figure pauses at the head of Elias's grave. It lifts its hooded head, still no face, only shadow. In one hand it holds a small hammer, its metal head stained darkly. In the other, a jagged shard of stone. I swallow hard. "What do you want from them?" The figure says nothing. Instead, it raises the hammer over Margaret's headstone, the one half buried in ivy. With a single brutal strike, the hammer crashes down. I wince as the stone cleaves in two, moss and lichen showering the ground. The headstone's carved letters crack and splinter. Margaret Voss fractures into jagged edges. A cry wells in my chest. Before I can move, the figure strikes again, this time at the slate marker bearing EVOSS. Splinters of slate explode like black rain. The ivy wreath unravels as the marker fragments scatter across the earth. I step forward, voice rising. Stop! You won't erase their names. The figure halts, hammer poised in midair. For a heartbeat, time stills. I see its gloved hand tighten around the hammer's handle. Then it lowers the weapon and lets it fall. The hammer thuds dull against the turf. Slowly, the figure turns toward me. I hold the brooch aloft. It catches the dim light, as though glowing. I carry witness, I say. Their names are not lost as long as I speak them. The hooded head inclines in a silent nod. Then, without a sound, it raises its other hand and points at me. A swirl of mist coils around its fingers, drifting toward my throat. I grit my teeth, push the brooch into my palm, and press its silver petals to my chest. The mist recoils as though burned, snapping back toward the grave. A low rumble shakes the earth. The figure retreats a step, then another, sinking back into the thinning haze. Before it vanishes completely, I glimpse the outline of two graves, Elias's and Margaret's, standing side by side, their markers healed and whole. Then the mist clears. No hooded figure, no shattered stones, only the tranquil dawn light and the single lily at Elias's head. The silence is so absolute it stings. I hurry forward and kneel at the graves. My fingers brush the smooth surfaces, the slate markers restored, the ivy wreath renewed. Beside them, the two headstones stand side by side, Margaret's polished clean, Elias's etched with dates now filled in. Born 1889, died July 16, 1925. I trace the letters, disbelief and relief mingling in my chest. I tuck the silver brooch beneath the ivy wreath as an offering, then lift the single lily and place it at Margaret's feet. Above me, the church bell tolls 4 times, announcing the funeral's beginning. But this ceremony is different. No unseen mourner, no vanished offerings. Today, I stand alone, witness to the final service. I step back and bow my head, voice soft but steady. Elias Voss, Margaret Voss, I remember you. And as the sun breaks fully over the horizon, the clearing holds its breath. The ivy trembles, the lilies sway, and for the first time, at St. Ilaria Cemetery, the ceremony is allowed to end. That evening, I gather in the caretaker's hut with everything I've recovered: the worn prayer book, the ivory-thin parchment, the silver brooch, and the small glassy token I've yet to examine. My breath still trembles from watching the stones rebuild themselves in the dawn light. Now, curiosity warps into resolve. I must know the token story. I sit at the wooden desk beneath a single oil lamp. Its flame flickers, casting long shadows on the walls lined with ledgers and maps. I place the token, a smooth, pale disc no larger than a coin, in the center of my workspace. Under the lamp's glow, it reveals a faint swirling pattern, like a whirlpool frozen in time. I reach for my notebook and begin a new page. The token of memory. Beneath, I sketch the object's outline and note every detail. Translucent surface, slight iridescence, weight surprisingly heavy in my palm. My pen hesitates. Then I recall the scrap of vellum from Margaret's grave. I unfold it again. Together until memory fades, yet today we stand united. The words pulse in my mind. Together until memory fades. United. The token, heart of memory, my notes read from the legend. Could this be the heart of memory itself? I lean back and light another lamp. Its richer glow spills across a shelf of local legends, town folktales, soldiers' diaries, whispered warnings. My gaze settles on an old leather-bound journal, its spine cracked, its pages brittle. Flip after flip until I find the entry, July 17, 1925. The ceremony must hold. Without the token, memory slips away. Should the token break, the dead will claim their own. My pulse quickens. The date, July 17, 1925, marks the day after Elias's recorded death. The day no one marked at all. The day the first ceremony would have burned in silence. I read on. Entry by Father Mallory, chaplain 7th Infantry. The token was fashioned from a window of the chapel, glass melted and shaped by grief and prayer. It binds our memories to the earth, holding the lost within reach. Without it, their souls wander, forgotten. I fear what price memory demands. Father Mallory. The priest who buried Elias, or at least tried to. His words tremble with regret. I trace the lines with a fingertip. A chill crawls up my spine. The token is more than a keepsake. It is the anchor for souls unclaimed by death. If it shatters, Elias and Margaret would slip beyond remembrance and beyond rest. I glance at the brooch in its velvet pouch. Silver lily, a sister's tribute. I draw them together, token and brooch, brother and sister, memory and ceremony. The puzzle pieces fit but leave a jagged gap. A cough behind me makes me spin. The lantern flame wavers. No one stands in the doorway. Only the hush of the night. My heart hammers, but I force myself to calm. I scoop the token into my coat and button it securely. Tomorrow at dawn, I will bring the token to the clearing. I will place it upon the graves alongside the wreath and the lilies. I will honor the vow of July 17, 1925, renewing the ritual as Father Mallory intended. Because some tokens are more than trinkets. They carry the weight of promise and the burden of remembrance. And some stories demand that we give voice not only to the living, but to the dead themselves. That night, I leave the caretaker's hut with the tokens secured in my coat pocket, the silver lily brooch pinned over my heart, and the battered prayer book under my arm. A lantern swings in my free hand, casting unsteady light across the narrow path. The moon is low, a pale sliver above St. Hilaria Cemetery's ancient stones. The wrought iron gate creaks as I push through, and a rush of cold air greets me, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and lilies. At the oak tree, I pause to catch my breath. My palms are slick with sweat despite the chill. I cross myself and whisper, "For Elias and Margaret." Then I step forward into the clearing. The graves lie side by side, slate markers gleaming dully in the lantern light. I place the ivy wreath between them, its leaves rustling softly as though alive. Next, I set the token, smooth and glassy, upon the wreath's center. Its surface reflects the lantern's flame in tiny prisms. I kneel on the damp grass and open the prayer book to its first page. The leather cover creaks, and the pages fall open to the very passage Father Mallory wrote. "By name and memory shall the broken return. By witness and homage shall his spirit find rest." My voice shakes as I read the words aloud, each syllable hanging in the still air. When I finish, I lay the book flat, spine against the wreath as an offering. Finally, I retrieve the silver lily brooch and fasten it to the token. The petal edges catch the lantern light, creating a soft halo around the glass. I step back, bow my head, and begin the litany. Elias Voss, born 1889, lost to battle in distant lands. Margaret Voss, born 1891, gone before her time. We remember your names. We honor your memory. We renew our vow. You shall not be forgotten. With each name spoken, the air grows heavier, as though the cemetery itself leans in to listen. My words echo across headstones, stirring shadows beneath the oak's gnarled branches. When the litany ends, I kneel once more, pressing fingertips to the token. The glass feels warm, thrumming with latent energy. A soft hum rises beneath my touch, almost a heartbeat. I close my eyes and wait. After a moment, the lantern's flame flickers, and the hush deepens so completely I can hear my own blood pulsing. Then, from the mist beyond the clearing, a figure emerges. Hooded, silent, gliding toward me. My heart hammers, but I keep my gaze steady. The figure pauses at the graves, directly before the wreath and offerings. It does not raise a hammer or a shard of stone. Instead, it bows its head, a gesture of acknowledgement. I rise and take a cautious step forward, voice firm. The covenant is renewed. Your debt is paid. The figure's cloak stirs as though caught on a breeze that does not touch the rest of the clearing. The figure lifts one hand, and I watch as the lantern's glow illuminates runes traced along the glove's fingers, identical to those carved on the unmarked stone and scribbled in the prayer book. It reaches toward the token. Fear races through me, but I do not flinch. I see the faintest wisp of smoke rise from the token's surface, then settle back into the wreath. The glass disc pulses, once, twice, like a slow, deliberate breath. Then the figure lowers its hand and steps back. A whisper drifts across the graves, a single word that shatters the silence: rest. With that, the figure dissolves into the mist, leaving only the wreath, the token, the prayer book, and the lily brooch. I stand alone in the clearing, chest heaving, eyes glistening in the lantern's light. My vow has been witnessed by the unseen mourner, by the cemetery itself, and by whatever powers bind memory to the earth. I gather my lantern and offerings, placing them carefully in my satchel. The graves stand silent and still, the markers unblemished, the ivy wreath unbroken. I trace the letters on the slate with a fingertip. Elias Voss, born 1889, died July 16th, 1925, Margaret Voss, born 1891, died 1910. Dawn approaches, the eastern sky pale with promise. I step away from the clearing, leaving no footprints behind. The church bell tolls twice as I reach the oak, a farewell and a benediction. Back at the hut, I set the prayer book on the desk and lay the token and brooch upon it. My hands still tremble, but my heart is lighter, unburdened by doubt. Tomorrow morning, I will arrive before dawn, but I will not return as an intruder. I will come as a witness to the final peace granted to two souls long forgotten. Because some ceremonies demand the living to remember, and some memories once honored finally allow the dead to rest. Night has fallen again, when I slip through the wrought iron gate of St. Ilaria Cemetery. My lantern is unlit. I bring only a flashlight now, its battery fresh, its beam steady. In my coat pocket rests the token, the brooch, and the worn prayer book, each an anchor against the coming storm. I step toward the oak, heart thudding. The clearing lies silent beneath a starless sky, the two graves side by side like old friends at rest. I kneel and place the token on the earth between them, where the ivy wreath once lay. I fasten the silver lily brooch to the token's edge. Then I open the prayer book and hold it before me, pages rustling in the cold breeze. I begin the invocation, soft at first, rising with each word. By name and memory shall the broken return. By witness and homage shall their spirits find rest. Elias Voss, born 1889, lost to war's cruel hand. Margaret Voss, born 1891, claimed by time's swift tide. We remember you, we bind you to this place. The clearing holds its breath. My voice echoes against crumbling stones. Above me, the oak's limbs sway, sighing in the darkness. A low rumble shakes the ground beneath my knees. I grip the book tighter, breath catching. The soil at the grave stirs, only inches of earth holding back centuries of secrets. Then, from every headstone in the clearing, a hand erupts through the turf. One by one, skeletal wrists push upward, hollow eye sockets lifting to the moonlight. The hands claw at the ground, ripping soil in shovelfuls as figures begin to emerge, ragged remains of mourners long dead, drawn here by the unbroken covenant. I stagger back, heart hammering as dozens of hollow-eyed shapes rise around me. Their mouths hang open in silent cries, their arms stretch toward me, pleading and accusing. I fumble for my flashlight and flip it on, but the beam is swallowed by the massive figures, their empty faces reflecting the light like broken mirrors. I back away, voice cracking. Stop! You have your memory. You have your names. Be at peace. They advance in a slow, shuffling tide. I raise the prayer book, brandishing it like a shield. The pages flutter, landing open on the invocation I just spoke. The words glow faintly, ink shimmering as though alive. The figures hesitate. Their heads turn toward the book, then back to me, uncertainty in their hollow gaze. I step forward, voice stronger now. Elias Voss! Margaret Voss, I speak your names. Elias Voss. Margaret Voss, may you rest. A hush falls. The dead stop their advance. The ground stills. The flashlight beam finds Elias's grave first, where the token rests. Then it flicks to Margaret's headstone. Both markers glow softly under the beam. Above me, the oak groans and a single branch arcs down, brushing against the prayer book's pages. The wind carries a whisper. Rest. Then, as if released, the figures collapse, drifting back into the earth. Hands sink through soil. Bones vanish into darkness. The last to fall is the figure of the hooded mourner, its cloak dissolving in motes of mist, leaving only the echo of its silent nod. The clearing is still once more. Only the moon bears witness, pale and unreadable. I drop to my knees beside the token, heart pounding, fingers trembling as I press it into the soft earth. The brooch glints where I fastened it, a promise sealed in silver. I close my eyes and whisper a final benediction. Go in peace, remembered, honored, and at rest. A single bell tolls, once, low and solemn. The ground settles, the token sinks slightly, as though accepted. Dawn is coming. I rise unsteadily, gathering the prayer book and the flashlight. The clearing lies calm beneath the oak, the graves untouched, the markers unblemished. Elias Voss, born 1889, died July 16, 1925. Margaret Voss, born 1891, died 1910. I stand at the edge of the clearing, breath ragged. The first pale light glimmers on the horizon. I know this ceremony is truly over. Yet as I turn to leave, I feel the softest flutter against my hand. A single white lily has sprouted at the head of Elias's grave, fresh and unfading. I brush its petals gently, then straighten and walk away. because some debts demand the living to remember, and sometimes when memory is honored, the dead finally learn to rest. The next morning, I arrive at St. Ilaria Cemetery precisely at 5:45 a.m. The air is crisp and the dew sparkles on every headstone. I carried nothing but a single bouquet of white lilies and my own quiet resolve. No lantern, no prayer book, only the names etched into memory and the promise of this day. I pause at the wrought iron gate and breathe deeply, steadying the flutter in my chest. Through open air, I hear the distant church bell begin its first toll. 1, 2. I step onto the path. As I walk toward the oak clearing, I notice everything unchanged. The same curve of gravel, the same ancient oak, the two graves side by side. But today, the silence feels different, gentler, as if the earth itself holds its breath in anticipation. I kneel between the headstones. The token lies beneath the soil, invisible now, its purpose fulfilled. The silver lily brooch remains fastened at Margaret's headstone where I left it. I gather the lilies from my arms and lay them in a neat row. 5 for Elias, 5 for Margaret, each stem straight and even. I stand and step back, spacing myself so that I face east toward the rising sun. The church bell tolls its third time. I raise my voice, clear and steady. We gather at dawn for the final service. We celebrate lives lived and remember those lost too soon. Elias Voss, soldier, brother's son, born 1889, who vanished and was returned by memory's vow. Margaret Voss, sister, child of promise, born 1891, who waited in silence for remembrance. Today, we honor your names, we rejoice in your rest, and we lay you gently to peace. A soft breeze stirs the lily's petals. Sunlight breaks the horizon in a rosy flush. I reach into my coat and draw forth the worn prayer book, now closed and unmarked. I hold it aloft. Let this be the book of final benediction. Let its silent pages speak of love and duty fulfilled. The breeze lifts a loose page, a slipped sheet from Father Mallory's journal, drifting to rest atop the lilies. I allow it as though his words are part of this service too. The church bell tolls a final time. 5 rings, solemn and sure. The birds awaken in distant groves, singing soft choruses of morning. The gravel path glows underfoot as the sun's rays warm the earth. I bow my head and place my hand on each headstone. Elias, Margaret, may you sleep undisturbed. May your names echo in hearts that remember, and may this final service seal the covenant between the living and the dead. I step back and listen. No footsteps, no hooded figure, only the wind, the tolling bells fading, and the light settling over the graves. I turn and walk slowly back to the gate, pausing for one last look. The clearing stands peaceful, a hallowed place touched by memory and release. I clasp my hands, a private prayer of gratitude and farewell. Back at the caretaker's hut, sunlight streams through the windows, painting dust motes in gold. I set the empty bouquet vase on the desk and arrange my tools neatly on the shelf. No more rituals, no more nightly vigils. I step outside onto the porch, inhaling the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers. In the distance, the church bell tolls 6 times for the hour. A soft knock comes at the door. I open it to find the town sexton standing there, lantern in hand. His gray eyes are gentle as he offers a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "Found this at the oak," he says. "Thought you'd." He unwraps it to reveal the silver lily brooch. Its petals are still bright, the runes along its stem glimmering faintly. I smile, voice warm. "Thank you. I must have forgotten it." He nods, looking over his shoulder toward the cemetery. "It's peaceful there now, no more ceremonies." I nod. "Yes, thank you." He steps back, lantern held low, and disappears down the path. I close the door and hold the brooch to my heart. In the following days, life at St. Ilaria returns to routine. I sweep paths, trim roses, polish brass nameplates. Each task a silent homage to those I've honored. Sometimes at dawn, I glance toward the oak clearing, expecting to see mist or movement. But I see only sunlit grass and 2 headstones bearing names that will never vanish. As summer deepens, the cemetery flourishes with wildflowers. Poppies, daisies, and the unexpected white lilies that sprout each morning at Elias's grave. I allow them to stand, a living memorial beyond my own offerings. One evening, as fireflies flicker in the twilight, I wander into the clearing. The air is warm, the earth soft beneath my boots. I kneel, touching the smooth slate of Margaret's headstone, then Elias is beside it. I whisper, "Thank you for teaching me that remembrance is sacred, that memory binds us beyond death. Rest in peace, dear siblings, eternally remembered." I rise and turn away. a breeze rustling the oak's leaves above. In my heart, I carry their names, Elias Voss and Margaret Voss, etched now into my own story. And I know that as long as I remember, they truly rest. Because some ceremonies end not in silence, but in peace. And some memories endure, blooming anew each dawn. Weeks have passed since the final service, and St. Ilaria Cemetery has settled into a peaceful rhythm. Each morning, sunlight filters through the chapel's stained glass windows, painting shifting patterns across the dusty pews. I continue my duties, sweeping floors, tending roses, polishing brass, but always with a quiet sense of completion. This afternoon, drawn by a soft hush, I step once more into the chapel. The heavy doors close behind me with a gentle thud. In the beam of my flashlight, I notice the vaulted ceiling where motes of dust drift like distant stars. The air carries the faintest scent of lilies and old incense. My eyes settle on the altar rail where I once read the Litany of Remembrance. There, resting against the polished wood, lies a single white lily, fresh, perfect, and untouched. I didn't place it there. Its petals glow softly in the stray light. I kneel and press my palm against the cool stone floor, heart full. For a moment, the chapel hums with memory. The hooded figure's silent nod, the rustling pages of the prayer book, the whispered promise of rest. I recall Father Mallory's words worn now into the margins of my mind. By witness and homage shall their spirits find rest. I rise and gather the lily, cradling it like a precious relic. As I stand, the church bell tolls 5 times, its tone sure and steady. No mist swirls at the chapel door. No unseen mourner slips through the shadows, only the echo of a promise kept. Outside, I breathe in the summer air. The cemetery beyond the chapel lies calm, headstones aligned, wildflowers blooming, the 2 graves of Elias and Margaret Voss at peace under the old oak. I tuck the lily into a small vase on the altar and step back. Before leaving, I pause under the archway and glance one last time at the silent pews. In their stillness, I sense a gentle presence, an echo of lives remembered. I bow my head in quiet gratitude and turn toward the door. The world beyond feels brighter, as though memory itself has lifted a shadow, and in the soft glow of afternoon light, I carry with me the lesson learned at St. Ilaria, that remembrance is not an act of the past, but a gift we give anew each day. Because even when ceremonies end, the echoes of remembrance endure, and in their resonance, the dead find their rest, and the living find their grace.